If you've killed lavender once, you probably blamed yourself. If you've killed it 3 times, you probably blamed the plant. Both are usually wrong. Lavender has a reputation as a tough, easy, drought-proof little shrub. And in the right spot, that reputation is earned. So when it turns gray and brittle in the middle, stops blooming, and finally gives up, most people quietly decide they just aren't good with it. They buy one more next spring, plant it the same way, in the same kind of soil, in the same part of the yard, and watch the same slow death happen again. Here's the part the plant tag never explains. Lavender is not a normal garden plant. It comes from dry, rocky hillsides around the Mediterranean, where the soil is thin and poor, the sun is brutal, and rain drains away in minutes. Almost everything we do to be good gardeners, rich soil, steady watering, a sheltered spot, a little fertilizer, is the opposite of what it wants. Lavender doesn't usually die from neglect. In most American yards, it dies from kindness. So before you spend money on another one, it's worth knowing exactly what kills it. There are 5 common reasons lavender fails. And once you can spot which one is happening in your yard, you'll know whether to move it, replant it differently, switch to a tougher type, or finally stop fighting a plant that was never going to be happy where you put it. The last reason is the one most people get backwards, and it's the difference between a lavender that struggles for 2 years and one that actually settles in. Let's start with the reason behind more dead lavender than all the others combined. Walk over to the lavender that died, or picture the last one. The center went gray and woody, the stems got brittle, and the whole plant looked like it dried out. That's the cruel trick. A lavender dying from too much water often looks like it died from too little. By the time the top looks bad, the roots underneath have usually already rotted. Lavender hates wet feet more than almost anything you'll plant. Its roots are built for fast-draining, gritty ground, and when they sit in damp soil, they start to rot. This isn't a vague worry. Plant clinics at universities like Oregon State have traced lavender root rot to a handful of soil-borne pathogens, names like Phytophthora and Pythium, and what they all have in common is that they thrive in soil that stays wet. Give the roots saturated ground for 2 or 3 weeks, especially when it's cool, and the damage can already be done. This is also why clay soil is so deadly for lavender. Clay holds water long after sandy soil has drained, and North Carolina State Extension is blunt about it. English lavender will die out in heavy clay. The most dangerous season isn't even summer. It's winter and early spring, when the ground stays cold and soggy for weeks. A lavender that would sail through a hard freeze in gritty soil can rot at the crown over a single wet winter in clay. Wet soil kills more lavender than cold ever does. So here's a test worth doing before you plant anything. Dig a hole about a foot deep where the lavender would go. Fill it with water and let it drain. Then fill it again and watch. If the water drains away cleanly, you have a much better chance. If water is still sitting there much later, especially by the next morning, that spot is too slow draining for lavender, unless you raise the planting area or use a container. The fix isn't complicated, but it does mean changing how you plant. In heavy or slow-draining soil, don't dig lavender into the ground at grade and walk away. Plant it high. A raised bed, a low mound, or even a gentle slope lets water run away from the roots instead of pooling around them. Mixing coarse grit or small gravel into the planting area helps, but in true clay, the more reliable answer is to build up rather than dig down, because amending one hole in clay just creates a bowl that collects water. Think of it as keeping the roots above the water line, not in it. Get drainage right, and you've solved the single biggest reason lavender dies. But there's a close runner-up, and it's something most people do on purpose because they think they're helping. Most of us were taught that good gardening means feeding the soil. Digging compost, add some manure, sprinkle a little fertilizer, and the plant rewards you. With lavender, that instinct quietly works against you. Lavender evolved in lean, rocky, slightly alkaline soil with very little to eat. That's its comfort zone. When you plant it in rich, fluffy, heavily amended soil, two things happen, and neither one is good. First, all that organic matter holds moisture, and you already know how lavender feels about wet roots. The same Pacific Northwest plant health guides that track lavender root rot point right at high organic, moisture-holding soil as part of the problem. Second, all those extra nutrients push the plant to grow fast and soft. Soft, lush growth might sound like success, but on lavender, it's a warning sign. That fast green growth is weaker, more attractive to aphids, more prone to fungal disease, and it doesn't firm up properly before winter. So when cold weather arrives, that soft growth dies back, and it looks exactly like winter damage. People blame the cold. The real cause was the rich soil and the feeding that happened months earlier. High nitrogen fertilizer is the worst offender. It gives you leaves at the expense of flowers. It thins out the aromatic oils that make lavender smell like lavender, and it leaves the plant softer and more vulnerable. If your lavender is big, leafy, floppy, and barely blooming, overfeeding is a likely suspect. What lavender actually wants is restraint. Skip the rich compost when you plant it. Skip the fertilizer almost entirely. If your soil tests on the acidic side, which is common across a lot of the country and especially in rainier regions, a little garden lime before planting nudges the pH toward the neutral to slightly alkaline range lavender prefers. And if you feel like you have to give it something, think drainage and a dry crown before you think fertilizer. A thin mineral mulch, like small gravel or horticultural grit, can help keep the base drier, but it will not fix a soggy bed by itself. With lavender, lean soil is not a problem to fix. It is part of the plan. If you've ever seen lavender for sale right next to the petunias and the bedding flowers at the garden center, that's part of where this goes wrong. It's displayed like an annual, so people treat it like one. Rich potting mix, steady water, a feeding now and then. That care keeps a petunia happy. It slowly kills a lavender. That covers what's happening below the soil line. The next reason is about what's happening above it, and it's one people underestimate constantly. Lavender needs sun the way it needs drainage. Not a nice-to-have, a requirement. Plan on at least 6 hours of direct sun a day, and closer to 8 is better. This is a plant from open, exposed hillsides with nothing shading it, and it carries that need into your yard. Put lavender in part shade, and it doesn't die dramatically. It just gets sad. It stretches toward the light. The stems go long and floppy. The foliage thins out, and the blooms get sparse and weak. A lavender that's reaching and leggy with hardly any flowers is usually telling you, plainly, that it wants more light. The frustrating part is that people often respond by watering and feeding it, which, as you now know, makes things worse. When you pick a spot, look for the brightest, most open part of the yard. South-facing and west-facing beds usually get the strongest light. Avoid tucking lavender against a shaded fence, under the skirt of a larger shrub, or in a corner that only catches a few hours of morning sun. There's a second piece here that gets ignored, and it matters almost as much as light: airflow. Lavender packed tightly into a crowded bed, where air can't move around the stems, holds humidity against the foliage, and that's an open invitation to fungal problems. In damp, low airflow conditions, You can get a gray, fuzzy mold called botrytis settling on the stems and flowers, and it spreads fast in cool, wet weather. This is a bigger issue in humid regions and rainy climates than in the dry West, but anywhere it shows up, the cause is the same: still, damp air around crowded plants. The fix is just space. Give each plant room, somewhere in the range of 1.5 to 3 feet apart, depending on the type and its mature size, so air can move through. In very hot, humid zones, a little light shade during the most brutal afternoon hours can take the edge off heat stress, but that's a small adjustment, not permission to plant it in the shade. Full sun is still the rule. So far, we've covered the spot and the soil. But you can do all of that right and still lose the plant if you bought the wrong kind in the first place. This next one accounts for a huge share of lavender deaths, and it starts before you ever leave the store. Here's something the average garden center display will not tell you. Lavender isn't one plant. It's a group of very different plants, and they are not equally tough. Buy the wrong one for your climate and it's almost guaranteed to fail, no matter how perfectly you plant it. Start with the workhorse. English lavender, Lavandula angustifolia, is the most cold-hardy of the common types and reliably comes back as a perennial in roughly USDA zones 5 through 9. It has the classic sweet lavender scent and a compact, tidy habit. If you garden where winters get genuinely cold, this is usually your best bet. Two old cultivars, Munstead and Hidcote, have been recommended by extension services for decades because they're compact and dependable, and they're a sensible starting point in colder regions. Next is Lavandin, Lavandula intermedia. It's a hybrid, bigger and more vigorous than English lavender, with longer flower stems and a stronger, more camphor-like fragrance, and it handles heat well. It's also hardy across a similar range, roughly zones 5 through 9. Names you'll see here are Grasso and Provence. One lavandin worth knowing by name is Phenomenal, which was selected specifically for tolerance to heat and humidity and is rated down to about zone 5. In tougher, more humid climates, a humidity-tolerant lavandin like that is often a smarter choice than a fussier English variety. Now the tender ones, and this is where it gets confusing on purpose. Spanish lavender is the one with the showy little flags on top of each bloom, the bracts that look like rabbit ears. French lavender has soft, toothed, gray-green leaves. Both are beautiful, both bloom early and long, and both are noticeably less cold-hardy than English lavender or lavandin, generally happy only in about zones 7 or 8 and warmer. In a cold winter region, these will not survive the winter in the ground. They're better treated as a container plant you bring to shelter, or simply as a seasonal annual you enjoy and replace. And here's the trap. The names get used interchangeably. The plant that's technically Spanish lavender, the one with the rabbit ears, is sold in a lot of nurseries labeled as French lavender. So you can't trust the common name on the front of the tag. Flip it over and read the Latin name. If it says Stoechus or dentata, you're holding a tender type that wants a mild winter. If it says angustifolia or intermedia, you've got one of the hardier ones. That one habit, reading the botanical name before you buy, prevents a surprising amount of lavender heartbreak. So the takeaway is simple. Match the type to your zone and your conditions before you fall in love with the flower. The wrong type can fail no matter how carefully you water, prune, or protect it. If you like garden advice that tells you the catch before checkout, subscribe. There's one reason left, and it's the one most people get backwards. It's also the easiest to fix once you understand it. Lavender gets woody. It's in the plant's nature. Over time, the base turns gray and hard and stops producing new growth. And an unpruned plant slowly splits open in the middle, gets leggy, and blooms less every year until it's mostly bare sticks. So pruning isn't optional if you want it to stay full and keep flowering. But there's a right way and a very wrong way, and the wrong way kills plants. Here's the rule that matters most. Never cut into the old gray wood. Unlike a lot of shrubs, lavender does not reliably sprout new growth from that hard, woody base. If you cut it back hard into the bare stems, hoping to rejuvenate it, you're more likely to end up with a dead plant. The living, growing part of lavender is the soft, green growth near the top. When you prune, you stay in that green zone. A good rule of thumb is to leave a few sets of leaves or buds above the woody base and never go below them. When you do, it matters too, and this is where regional advice can get confusing. Lavender usually needs two different kinds of pruning: a light cleanup in spring, once you can see fresh green growth, and a shaping cut after the main bloom finishes. That post-bloom trim should stay in the green growth, not the old wood. In mild climates, it can be a real shaping cut that takes the plant back into a rounded mound. In colder or wetter regions, keep it lighter and avoid cutting hard too late in the season, because tender new growth going into winter is not what you want. The bigger point is not one perfect calendar date. It is this: do not let lavender go unpruned for years, and do not try to rescue an old woody plant by cutting it back into bare gray stems. Spring pruning has its place, but it's lighter work. In early spring, wait until you actually see fresh green growth appearing low on the plant. Then clean off the winter-damaged tips and tidy the shape. The key word is wait. If you charge out in late winter and start cutting while the plant is still dormant, you risk taking off growth it needs and exposing it to cold damage. Let the green show you what's alive first, then cut to it. One small detail that's easy to overlook: use sharp, clean pruners. A clean cut heals. A crushed, ragged cut from dull blades is an open door for disease. And on a plant this prone to fungal problems, that matters more than it sounds. So put the picture together. Prune into the green, never the gray. Make the main cut after it blooms. Keep it to a rounded mound. Do that, and lavender stays younger and fuller for far longer than the woody, hollowed-out plants you see in so many tired front beds. Now for the part most lavender videos skip, because it's not the cheerful answer. Sometimes the right move is to stop fighting. Lavender can be a long-lived, low-care plant when the conditions genuinely suit it. Lots of sun, lean soil, sharp drainage, and a climate without long stretches of cold, wet ground. But there are places where lavender is honestly an uphill battle, and pretending otherwise just costs you money and disappointment. If you garden in the humid southeast, along the Gulf Coast, in the rainy Pacific Northwest, or anywhere with heavy clay and soggy winters, lavender is working against its own biology. It can be done, it is not easy, and it is often short-lived. So instead of buying the same plant and hoping for a different result, run through a quick decision. First, sun. If your spot doesn't get 6 or more hours of strong sun, lavender is the wrong plant for that spot. Full stop. Move it or choose something else. Second, water. Do that drainage test. If the ground stays soggy, you either build a raised mound or you grow lavender in a pot instead. Third, climate. If you're in a humid or wet winter region, lean toward a heat and humidity-tolerant lavender like Phenomenal rather than a delicate variety, and give it the most open, breezy, sharply drained spot you have. The container route is worth a serious look because a pot lets you control everything the open ground won't. Use a gritty, fast-draining mix rather than rich, water-holding potting soil. Make sure the pot has real drainage holes and never let it sit in a saucer of standing water, because that quietly recreates the swamp you were trying to avoid. One thing people forget: roots in a pot are far more exposed to cold than roots in the ground. So in a cold winter region, a lavender that's hardy in the soil may still need the pot moved somewhere sheltered for the winter. And if you go through all of that and lavender still doesn't fit your yard, that's not a failure. That's good gardening. A plant can be beautiful and still be the wrong choice for your conditions. There are plenty of tough, sun-loving, drought-tolerant perennials that give you a similar silvery, low-water, hands-off look and actually want the climate you've got. Putting the right plant in the right place will always beat forcing the wrong one and calling yourself a bad gardener for it. One quick note before you go, especially if you have pets. Lavender is listed by the ASPCA as toxic to dogs, cats, and horses. In plant form, a small nibble is often less concerning than concentrated oil, but do not guess if a pet has eaten a noticeable amount. Call your vet or animal poison control and tell them exactly what was eaten. The bigger caution is concentrated lavender essential oil, which is far more dangerous, particularly for cats. Keep the oils well away from animals, and you can enjoy the plant outside without much worry. So here's where I'd leave you. Before you buy one more lavender, do 3 things. Check that the spot gets at least 6 hours of strong, direct sun, and closer to 8 if you can give it. Do the drainage test and see whether water sits or disappears. And read the Latin name on the tag so you know whether you're buying a hardy type or a tender one. Those 3 checks, done before you spend a dime, will save you more lavender than any fertilizer, any watering schedule, or any trick a label promises. I'd like to know what you're working with. Tell me your zone and tell me what your soil does after a heavy rain. Does the water sit for hours or is it gone by the next morning? That one answer tells me more about your odds with lavender than almost anything else, and I'll do my best to point you in the right direction. If you want fewer dead plants and fewer expensive do-overs, subscribe.